Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Dev Diary. The vegetation and the bloodthirsty call, so we return to our Plants vs. Zombies Cross Vampire Survivors mashup, which lately has been going through some growing pains that are leaving us with a lot of questions. For example, last episode we fixed up the computer experience, introduced updated ways to purchase seeds, and the handling of the email system. We were left with a couple of issues, however, including how to properly handle the selling of plants. And with selling plants being such an important part of the gameplay loop, it only seemed right to address the issue before moving on to anything else. But before we get into things further, remember to leave a like if you enjoyed today's video, and subscribe if you're new to the channel. Turn on notifications so you don't miss future episodes, and with that said, let's get to the code. Now first and foremost, the ability to carry plants has been removed, for the time being at least. To make sense of this, let's take a look at the updated code for the shovel. Now, players will be able to dig up any plants using the left click. This will return the plant to the player's inventory as a seed and remove the plant itself from the play area. Also, the shovel is now capable of turning lily pads back into water tiles, which will also return lily pad seeds to the player's inventory. And for the time being, evolved plants will not return seeds for previous versions, though I'm not opposed to the idea. But digging is not the shovel's only use. Now, if the player right-clicks on a plant, this will mark it to be sowed. This will also trigger the spawning of a new object, the drone. The drone has two purposes. First, to retrieve the marked plants for sale, and second, deliver seeds to the player. Indeed, now when the player purchases a seed, the routine is the same. However, instead of instantly receiving the seed, a drone spawns to deliver said seed. Similarly, when a plant is marked for sale, the drone will spawn, move towards the target plant, and award the player their money once it's been received. Meaning if the plant is eaten before the drone gets there, well, them's the breaks. The drone itself is very basic in behavior. It's an on-rail system of sequences to move to destination, perform necessary actions once it reaches that destination, and then flies off in a random direction to despawn. Admittedly, I'm not a huge fan of this approach, and I'll get to why later, but for now, that's the drone and the changes to the shovel, so let's move on. The code for deal populations has been updated to only display a plant type once, meaning no more multiple deals for the same plant at different prices. To do this, two new functions were introduced. One to check the necessary arrays to avoid duplicates, and another to make sure certain plants wouldn't show up as deals, leading to impossible circumstances. For example, trying to sell plants that only exist for a short while, such as doom shrooms and the like. And while on the subject of the computer, the inventory system has also been updated. Now, when hovering over an item in the right list, the details for that plant are then displayed on the left, which is obviously pulled from the global list of plant data structs. And this is where I decided to call it for today's session. We are definitely back to taking a couple steps forward because I'm honestly in uncharted territory here. What this project started as and what it's become are two very different beasts, and navigating it all is getting a little tough. Finding ways to adapt to new major additions is challenging, as it's hopefully been shown in the last few episodes. For example, I like the idea of what the drones represent, but I'm not exactly a fan of the drone concept. At the very least, maybe keep the drones for selling plants, but perhaps use something like a mail truck to drop off seeds. If only because the idea of using a mail truck to thin the horde seems fun, kind of like how lawnmowers work in PvZ. But that would require a larger emphasis on the map's construction, which means additional collisions, which may hinder performance. And the same goes for the inventory system. I liked the concept for the player having to gauge their level of participation in the gameplay, but things have evolved to where it's just not the same. The weight debuff, the double usage for plants, there's a lot of fun stuff there, but it just currently doesn't jive with the direction that we're headed. So now the question has become, what part does the player play in this experience? Should they have a physical form or be an omnipresent being? I just don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens next. Despite the uncertainties expressed, it's been fun to constantly find ways to solve these issues, even when they don't always end up working. At this point, the fear isn't so much the failure, but the question of when does this cease to be a mashup and simply become something else entirely? Because I feel like we're starting to creep towards that fork in the road. But there's also the recent release of Vampire Survivors Moonspell DLC and the open world nature of that new map, so maybe I'll find some new inspiration or direction in there. But anyway, tell me what you guys think. Are we still on the right track? Where do you stand on if we can even still call this a mashup? Am I just overthinking things? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Also, quick reminder, if you'd like to support the continued creation of these videos, consider subscribing to my Patreon. But with that said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.